Seen shadow people, thought I was seeing aliens. I seen a little bit of everything. And it's just, I regret it, ever doing it, and I got hooked on it.
Zeb Anthony Henson has been using meth for almost 20 years. He says it's ruined his life and he wants to get help. According to the local probation office, he has attended several Narcotics Anonymous sessions, but has refused all other treatment offers.
I hate myself for doing it sometimes, and I hate who I become, but I end up going back to it every time, and I always want.
Meth causes dopamine, the chemical in the brain that signals pleasure, to skyrocket. But the drug also impairs dopamine renewal. Addicts can never repeat their first high. Continued use so disrupts the brain's neural pathways that even life's basics get hard. Users can't take care of themselves, let alone their families.
But you can't hardly start working with them to start a real good treatment and education program until they've been away from it for a year.
But in the Rockbridge area, very few meth users see that level of care.
There used to be more options that the probation department had to offer people, but you know, it's funding, it's money, and so much of that funding has dried up.
The local probation office cannot afford to send any more drug offenders to Rockbridge area community services for treatment this year. The agency has drained its budget, and there will be no more money until July 1st.
What we're having to do now, we're having to pick and choose, and that's pretty tough, asking officers to decide who you want to get in that program.
Even if probationers do get a spot in a program, treatment is not always effective. Meth offenders are directed to either inpatient or outpatient programs, depending on individual needs. But even the most severe addicts often must return to an environment that they associate with drug use.
When they come back and they start recovering, they face a lot of mess. I call them messes. And they have to take a big old mop out, and they've got to mop all these messes up.
And the Rockbridge area has its own particular set of problems. According to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, more than 90% of the meth in the area comes from super labs in Mexico. The drugs, transported into the country by planes, boats, and cars, travel across the border into Texas, up to Atlanta, into the Carolinas, and eventually into Southwest Virginia. But law enforcement officials say the demographics of the area and meth use seem destined for each other.
It's basically male, predominantly Caucasian. Economically, what we're seeing is it's lower socioeconomic. And when you think about that, and you think about the demographics of Southwest Virginia, you can see why we have the problem.
But meth is not cheap. According to law enforcement officials, it's about the same price as cocaine. The DEA has busted up around 60 meth labs in Virginia this year, putting the agency on track to pass the 83 labs it took down last year. About 85% of those 60 labs were in Southwest Virginia.
The current trend for manufacturing methamphetamine clandestinely is what they call shake and bake method, which is in essence you're making methamphetamine in a Coke bottle.
Investigator Donald Sly of the Rockbridge County Sheriff's Office says his agency has encountered only a few meth labs in recent years. But Rockbridge area native Nathan Lee Connor says he's made his own meth several times.
Oh yeah, a middle school kid can make it. Just household materials.
Connor is awaiting sentencing on meth manufacturing charges in the Rockbridge County Circuit Court. Both Connor and Henson have had many brushes with the law, but their problems persist.
When you bring people on probation, but you don't put any state or government resources or private resources really into providing an alternative, you're making them sitting ducks and making society a sitting duck.
For the preliminary hearing, I'm Stephen Peck.